Guys, welcome back. Hope you're all very well. Today we have the lessons I've just learnt there from reading about Alexander the Great. Someone I was familiar with, heard the name, wasn't too sure of their story, so thought I'd dig a bit deeper and get a book and find out what all the fuss was about, find out why he was so great, or if indeed he was. And I can firmly say after reading, yes, he was great. Um, for those of you who don't know, his story takes place around 2000 years ago, 350 BC, and he was the son of a Macedonian king called Philip. At 18, Alexander joins or becomes a commander in his dad's army, wins his first battle, and then at 20, when Philip gets assassinated, he becomes the king. So, yeah, a bit of a turn up for the books for him. 20 years old, he's the king of Macedonia, surrounded by enemies and people looking to take his place. So what does he do? This is kind of where his story begins, and he he says, "I would rather live a short life of glory than a long life of obscurity," and that very much fits with what's about to happen. So he only lives till he's 32. He dies of disease, and in that 12 year space, he does a lot. He ends up dominating a part of the world, possibly the greatest kingdom of the ancient world. He named 70 cities after himself, all the way from Egypt to Turkey, and does a heck of a lot of good. He spreads kind of culture throughout all these areas, and yeah, it's an amazing story, and I would recommend it to be checked out. We kind of come back to what he says there, living a short life of glory compared to a long life of obscurity. How many of us would swap, you know, living for an extra 30 years of kind of just ambling along, plain life, and instead choose plan B, which is the glory. So you might have some tough testing times in there, but you could be great. You could be actually great. I mean, it's gotta be worth it. Alexander, we're talking about this guy 2,000 years later, and we think of him as great, and the lessons we can learn from him, and from what I've learned from this book on leadership, are amazing. I would definitely recommend checking out. So, one thing that he did was always lead from the front. So, in every battle, he would be out there at the very front. Anytime his guys were wavering, there were campaigns where these guys were going through mountainous, snowy regions, and they didn't want to, the army did not want to go any further. But Alexander would jump on the horse, lead them in, and they would follow. And they followed him because he did things like that. He just got up, got on with it, led from the front. I mean, compare that to some kings back in them days. The Persians, Darius II was kind of the main enemy he was up against, and when it came to battles, Darius would be surrounded by the best guards 2 miles back behind the front line giving out orders. Now, what would that do to an army? Could you imagine being under Alexander, seeing that guy putting himself first at the most risk? It's going to fill you with confidence, and you're going to want to follow that guy into battle. I mean, you can put that into your own life now. If you start taking charge, and if you get any situation offers itself where you can take charge, do it. Give it a go. It's nothing bad's going to happen. You'll inspire people around you, and you'll develop, and you'll become a leader. And it can be in sports, it can be at work, it can be anything. So it's a brilliant lesson, and it comes up a number of times in the book. And one of the things that really stood out to me, another kind of saying that Alexander lived by was, "There's nothing impossible to he who will try." And again, there's countless examples of it in the book. There's things he does. He goes up against armies that are 5 times bigger than his, more experienced, but he tries. He finds a way, and because he combines that with his pure leadership skills, you're under a spell. You just follow him, and hey, he was undefeated in all them years, so he obviously knew what he was doing. An amazing guy. I mean, there's some great stories in there. One when they're crossing a desert, and I believe it's in Africa. They're traveling for weeks, months. Guys in the army are just falling, dying, being left behind. They've barely any rations, barely any water. They finally come upon some water, and the guys in the army give it to Alexander because he's the king. he holds up the water in front of everyone, pours it in the sand as if to say, if you just can't have any, I'm not going to stand here and take the only bit of water. And again, it's just showing he's one of them. He's just a normal person, but he's better. Like, he's great. He When it comes to doing these big kind of decisive moments, he puts himself first and he leads by example. So a really amazing guy. I thought the book was fantastic, really epic. Not Certainly he wasn't the perfect individual, but he got more right than wrong. So would highly recommend you all check it out. I'll leave a link to the version of the book I read below. But for now, have a good day. Take care.